Welcome to a new episode of a Super Bloom podcast. I am so excited to kick off this new episode with a fantastic opportunity for you, my listeners. Do you want to be part of the podcast industry? Want to get in on the podcast craze but don't know how? Have I got a chance for you? All you have to do is sign up with us at Super Bloom to become part of our Blossom family. Then you will learn how to use your marketing skills to reach out to friends, family, and neighbors to invite them to become part of our Super Bloom podcast family. Don't have any marketing skills? Don't worry. For a monthly fee of $25.99, you can sign up to be part of a program that teaches you everything you need to know about modern-day social media marketing and being a boss woman. Don't have friends or family? For an extra $5.99, we'll add the How to Make Friends and Adopt a Family to your Super Bloom Blossom package and teach you everything you need to know about surrounding yourself with good people who are willing to support you by giving you money if you ask for it to support your dream of being a Blossom girl boss. What's in it for me, you ask? Well, I don't know. Do you like money, freedom, parties, photo shoots, joy, peace, candles, inventory, coffee mugs, a keychain that says Blossom Girl Boss Blossom? All of this can be yours. It's simple. All you have to do is get 25 people to subscribe to this podcast, and you will suddenly have the chance to get paid for it, and eventually maybe even own a part of this podcast. But we probably won't end up doing that. But we could. Then encourage the 25 people who you got to subscribe. Teach them to each get their own 25 subscribers. We'll pay them, and you'll get a Girl Boss bonus for every person they subscribe. Help us grow by helping you grow by helping them grow. Add it all together, and it equals more money for everybody. Live, laugh, money. Okay, if you just heard anything I said and thought it was a great idea and wanted to join this fictitious Blossom family opportunity, then holy shit, this is the episode that can save you. Okay, what I just described is the most basic form of an MLM or multi-level marketing strategy, also known as a pyramid scheme. Again, just to be crystal clear, there is no Blossom Club. So if you tell a friend to check out this podcast and subscribe to it, thank you. Thank you so much. You're awesome. But you will also not get paid except with just an immense amount of gratitude. Truly. Thank you. But this is just an example of how people and companies can try to trap you into a business deal that only serves them and uses you. If you love a documentary as much as I do, then you probably watched LulaRich on Amazon Prime. It's a docuseries about the company LulaRoe, and it came out in the fall of 2021. If you haven't seen it, then after this episode, please give it a glance. It's fantastic. Well, today I'm talking with an ex-LulaRoe consultant who shares her story in the docuseries and who today helps others escape the trappings of MLMs. And she educates the masses in hopes that they don't fall prey to these pyramid schemes masquerading as successful business opportunities. Her name is Roberta Blevins. She also has her own podcast called Life After MLM. And look, I don't want to shame anyone who has been taken advantage of by MLM companies. In studying for this episode, I actually was surprised to hear friends of mine share their own experiences in getting caught up in these MLMs. So it can happen to anyone. It usually happens most frequently to women and to stay-at-home mothers who are looking for a sense of identity outside of motherhood, or who is just hoping to help financially contribute to their family while staying home. The only people who should feel ashamed are these companies that know exactly what they are doing and are turning a blind eye to the people and the families that they are hurting. So let's just get to it. Here's my talk with Roberta Blevins. Are you from San Diego?
Yeah, born and raised.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy. I love San Diego a lot. And Encinitas, we went there a lot when we were living in LA, which is beautiful too.
Oh, yeah. I love Moonlight Beach. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
That whole area is really nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just said that you grew up in San Diego, and that actually leads perfectly into my first question, which is, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were a kid, what did you dream of being?
Oh my gosh, everything. A Broadway star, a marine biologist, a professional Cinderella at Disneyland, anything. Like anything that was fun and didn't feel like work while working seemed to be like what I wanted to do. And I never knew what it was. And then I went to beauty school and I was like, oh, this is fun. I'll do this.
What kind of beauty did you do?
So I went for makeup thinking, oh, that would be so fun. I want to do makeup, really like more special effects and things like that. And realized that people don't really need special effects makeup every day unless you're in the industry. And I was like, maybe I should learn how to do hair because people actually know how to need that every day. And still do fun stuff every now and then. Actually got to do all of the special effects makeup for my daughter's Halloween carnival in the haunted house this year. So that was really fun. But that's really all I do in the beauty industry. And then a little bit in the salon, but not so much anymore.
Were you working? So you were working in beauty. And I know from obviously watching, and I rewatched LulaRoe over the weekend, beyond just listening to your podcast, but it seemed like such an interesting jump from going from the beauty industry to all of a sudden clothing, athleisure. It's like interesting to use the word fashion. I feel like because it was a different, even just business plan than a kind of prototypical fashion line. What was your life like where were you when you first heard of the business LulaRoe?
Right. Okay. So I had been doing hair. I've been doing hair for 22 years now. And before I had gotten married and had kids, I had lived in LA and was doing hair in LA. And when I decided to move back to San Diego, my clients were like, how dare you? And so I was like, look, I'll just come out once a month. Everybody will get their hair done on the weekend. And that's what I was doing for a while. And then when I had kids, I was like, I can't go to LA, but the money was really good. And so I would do it until my daughter started school. And then when she started school and I started missing out on opportunities like being in the PTA and like being the class mom or, just the volunteer or whatever, I was like, I can't continue to go to LA because the fun stuff is happening while I'm gone. And that's not why I'm doing this. So I started looking for something that could replace that income. And even when I was younger, fashion school was something that I had been interested in. And I had done like window dressings in other jobs that I had had. And so I was like, okay, like maybe, when I heard about LulaRoe, I was just in a really sort of vulnerable state. My dad had passed away a few years earlier. And I was very much like, I don't know what to do with my life. And my daughter was young. And I wanted to be, I was already everything, but I felt like I needed to be even more than everything. And I thought,
what do you mean you were already everything?
So, being the mom, you're everything, right? You're taken to school, you're picking up, you're doing all the shopping, all the grocery shopping, all the household shopping, all the cooking, all the cleaning, everything. Mm-hmm. I was, at the time, my husband's ear for his work and his business and anything that was like, him and I are now no longer together, but we're great co-parents and friends. But I was everything for everyone. And there was no one who was any of that for me. And I also then felt, for some reason, probably hustle culture, that wouldn't it be also great if I could also bring in a substantial amount of money so that the end of the month isn't so stressful anymore. And I just started looking into opportunities. MLM had already come into my life, but it's been in my life forever, but I hadn't had really great experiences. And I had sold another company called It Works, which is ridiculous and so embarrassing to say.
Is that a makeup company? What's It Works? I missed this one.
It's like a health and wellness MLM that sells like green powders and like fat wraps and like, coffee that makes you poop your pants and things like that, right?
I love that. Also, they're just like, what should we name it? What will people buy? Something that works. There we go. It works.
You know what? Yeah,
you know what?
It works.
Okay.
Then they'll have to tell everyone it works when they tell them about it. Yeah, absolutely. That was the most embarrassing part was the name. And so I was familiar with MLM, and I remember I had done they have these craft fairs for just MLM, because I also feel like craft fairs should just be for homemade things and like small business. So I was going to these like MLM only like wine nights. And I ran into a friend from high school who was selling a different MLM. And she was like, I never expected you of all people to be selling like a wellness MLM. And it sort of stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? She's right. Like, this isn't really my vibe. So when the fashion quote one came in, I was like, this is slightly more my vibe. There's actually a hair MLM too, which I would have never touched with a 10-foot pole because it's a total nightmare. Name Monet. Yeah. So I was like, let's do fashion. Let's see. And honestly, it was really just like people were selling leggings and I thought I could sell leggings from home too. Like, this seems really easy.
If I hear MLM, my first thought would be run.
Right.
Like this is a scam. But the fact that it's like, no, there is opportunity here. Why did you think that there was opportunity within an MLM?
Back in 2015, when LulaRoe was introduced to me, I literally had no idea that MLMs were basically legal pyramid schemes. I had no idea. And even, here's the other thing, you're asking people in the organization, well, you know, my friend said it's a pyramid scheme. And the organization is like, pyramid schemes are illegal. We would never do that. Like, your friend is misinformed. And so you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe my friend is misinformed. Pyramid schemes are illegal. That makes sense. And there's this like platitudinous, like buzzwordy bullshit that comes with it. And really like a lot of just denying what's actually happening. And I believed it because I wanted to believe it, because I thought this is the vehicle to make me the money that I need to check off that last box of being everything.
Well, and it looked really fun. I mean, from what I've seen of what was happening within LulaRoe at the time that you entered the company, which was 20, what did you say? 20?
I joined in 2016. Yeah.
2016. I mean, it looks like it is just immediate community.
Yeah.
Like this immediate, very encouraging friend group, a lot of purpose, a lot of hashtags of like girl boss, like own your own business, like, you know, this promise of joy and feeling like you will have the secret to the ultimate work-life balance of not only being like the best mom, the best wife, the independent business owner, and you can be all of those things at the highest, you know, optimal level at the same time if you work with us.
Yeah.
That kind of is what it, beyond just like, hey, if you want to like have this side gig of selling leggings or maybe run your own business, it was almost like promising a lifestyle.
Absolutely. And it wasn't really like designed that way in the beginning for me, at least, because really all I was looking for was something to replace the LA income so I didn't have to travel anymore. And I had talked to people who were selling leggings. And I'm like, oh, I make a ton of money just selling leggings. I can't even keep them in stock. So I went into Facebook groups and I went into parties as like a little spy and I just watched them fly off the shelves. And I was like, market research. I'm like, people want these? Like, okay. There were a few that I was like, oh, I'd wear that. That's cute. But most I was like, well, you know, this is good for me because I'm not going to be like buying my own supply because I would never wear murder clowns. I just never would, or things like that. Right. So it really felt to me like I was like, that's not going to be hard. Like I will just sell them. And in the beginning, it was really like that. And that sisterhood and that community did come with it. It comes with it. But I wasn't super like indoctrinated into it until after I had joined. And I really experienced it. I mean, they were, I hate to use the word grooming, but they were grooming me for months, asking me, oh, you know, have you talked to your husband? Is this something you're going to do? Wouldn't be so great. Oh, it's such a bummer you didn't sign up earlier. There's this event that you're going to miss out. And that was the event with Mario Lopez that I missed out on. And the whole next day, like all on social media, everybody's hanging out with AC Slater in these photos. And I'm like, what? I'm missing out on this? Oh, I got to sign up. I don't want to miss the next one. And then once I was in, it was like, well, now you need to get other people in and then you can have a team and then you can get a team name and make a Facebook group and then you can plan events. And I was like, that sounds super fun. How do I do that?
And it was a completely different way of selling things. This wasn't door to door. This wasn't like, you know, potluck parties with Tupperware. I mean, this was online, you know, this like perfect merger of just like where you could go live on Facebook, go live on Instagram. So, okay, I just want to, so everyone listening can kind of keep up with it because I know your story very well, but so you join LulaRoe, it's going well, you're enjoying yourself, you're selling. and making up that income that you were really hoping for. I'm assuming you're also starting to feel like a sense of self again and identity within the family and even with friends. And at what point are you just starting to then, because within an MLM, you basically onboard is when you join the company, correct? Right. And you, in order to do that, you spend money in order to buy the product that you are then going to sell.
Pay to play.
Yes, pay to play. And then at what point do you start having people under you as your team? What can you explain what the team building is? Because this is where it starts to get, I think when we start to think about like what's legal, what's illegal, this is where it gets important for people to understand.
Right. So MLMs use a lot of like Orwellian doublespeak to explain things in a different way. And so I would say that, they call it team building, but it's just recruiting. It's just massive recruiting. And all of the ranks that you can hit, like superstar diamond and like princess unicorn, they're just recruitment guy number 1, recruitment lady number 2, recruitment person number 3. It's all inconsequential and it's all just recruiting status. So people say like, oh, I'm building a team. When we can take away like that fake business language with MLMs, like you're not building a team, you're recruiting people into a pyramid scheme. Like, let's call it what it is, right? So that's, we will experience a lot of that, this double speak and this like MLM cult language. So in most MLMs, when you join, you start selling things and you sort of decide, oh, like maybe I want to have a team. Maybe you reach out and say, oh, do you want to join my team? And you recruit people into your team and you start creating your own pyramid, essentially. An MLM is like a big pyramid that is comprised of like lots and lots and lots of tiny pyramids inside that are all nested inside of each other. Each pyramid is nested. Unfortunately, most people do not build a team. We call those people the last ones in. They don't usually ever see any money back because the real money is made in the building of the team and the sort of the residual income that comes from that team. Like I said, most MLMs, you wouldn't start building a team until after you probably were in and sort of understanding. But with LulaRoe, everything was going so fast. And when you would join, and again, with an MLM, you would join, you would be in. With LulaRoe, you joined and then you got thrown into a queue. And it was just like a holding pin because they didn't have enough stuff to give out, but they didn't want to lose out on people. So they threw us in, like a holding period where it was a training where you'd go into this Facebook group and they're like, these are the things that you could do. And so we're in this, we have no idea. Nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's leading each other and nobody has any idea of what's happening. And a friend of mine comes to me and she goes, I think I want to join your team. And I was like, I'm not even onboarded yet. She's like, well, I want to join your team. The first thing you get when you join LulaRoe is a link. They're like, this is your link. You haven't onboarded yet, but this is your link. And I asked my upline, I said, my friend wants to join. Can I just give her my link? They're like, yeah, she can join you. And I'm like, even though I'm not onboarded, they're like, yeah, it's totally fine. So I had people underneath me on my team before I was even onboarded into LulaRoe. I joined. And because this woman was a friend of mine, she joined a couple days after me. So she was onboarded probably a week after me. Her onboarding package was enough to give me like a $400 bonus my first month. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know I was going to get a bonus check. But I literally got a bonus check every single month I was in LulaRoe from the second I joined. That first month I got a bonus check because I was someone under my team, in my team already. But like, it was wild. I had never experienced anything like it. And every single person that did end up joining my team came to me. There were times where I would throw like a net out that I was like, if anybody's interested, you can always ask. But I never like approached people. It's a really big buy-in and I didn't ever want to assume anything about anybody.
What was the buy-in initially? Like what was the least and what was the most you could buy in?
So when I joined, and it's changed so many times, but when I joined, there were 3 packages. And it was sort of like, like you pick a couple from here, a couple from here. That's one package, this package, whatever. So there's 3 different size packages. There was a 5,000, roughly a 7,500, and roughly like a 9-ish thousand. And with the 9,000 package, you also got like 25 free items, which were high ticket items, easy add-ons that you could just create. And I was like, why I know I'm going to buy the inventory. Why would I sit on this? Why would I throw away free money? Which again is an MLM tactic that got me hook, line, and sinker. And I bought the biggest package. And so I never wanted to assume that anybody just had $5,000 lying around. In fact, it was literally my tippity-toppity upline who told people they should sell their breast milk that is featured in LulaRoe. So I was on that team. So that's my team. Yay, go team. And so I never wanted to assume that, it was a really big buy-in, but every single person came to me and they were like, I've been watching what you're doing. I'm a fan. I have a closet full of LulaRoe. It's everything. And I wanted to join a team and I want to join yours. I'm like, okay.
Because this was a craze at this point of of people wanting to join, and kind of what you're saying, that there was that like waiting period where people, are just trying to join and waiting by the phone, and also instructional videos on how to get enough money in order to join if you had no money. It was this promise of, hey, you're in debt. Well, here are other options in order to continue your journey to join us and get yourself out of debt by paying us money, and really just driving themselves farther into debt. And one of the examples you said was, you could sell breast milk, open up credit cards, start like a version of GoFundMe's and ask friends and family to sponsor you. And
also, like if you have an elderly grandparent or something that may be dying soon, you could ask for your inheritance early.
Wow.
So shady.
Wow.
There's all kinds of shady things. I don't know if that happened in LulaRoe specifically, but in my experience of talking to survivors, like I've heard that story before too. Yeah.
So you're in LulaRoe, you're making money, and you're noticing that you're also making these incredible bonus checks just from bringing people in. Were you making much from selling leggings?
My business basically kept itself afloat. Like every single bit of money that I would make in sales, I turned around and spent it to repurchase and to grow my inventory, because that's what they told us. Mm-hmm. They would use this example, like if you went to Target and there was only 5 shirts at Target, you would turn around and go to a different Target. And I was like, they're absolutely right. I would absolutely be like, what is going on? Why are there no shirts here? And so I again, hook, line, and sinker, I bought it. And I was like, yep. So anytime I sold something, when I was trying to grow that style specifically, I would in turn, when I sold it, I would buy 2 more to replace it. So it would just grow and grow and grow. My goal, this is so sick and sad, but my goal was to have at least 1,000 pieces. I don't think I ever hit 1,000 pieces, but I was like, one day I'll have 1,000 pieces. Like in this weird like competition of like who can get, it was just strange.
Yeah.
Like I don't recognize who I was when I was in MLM.
I was going to ask if you're at this point, you were looking for a sense of identity, is kind of where we started the conversation, and also wanting to be there and be more present for your kids. I mean, were you in the PTA at this point? Were you really present in your kid's life? How was your marriage? How was your friendships? How was your family relationships? Because that was a part of why you started.
Yeah. All of my friends were LulaRoe friends, so there was no problem there. And a lot of my friends that had been outside ended up joining LulaRoe as well. And so that's all we talked about. Like we had group chats and all kinds of different things, Facebook groups and side chats and phone calls and Zoom calls all the time. So I never felt like I didn't have friends or a community. I felt actually the exact opposite, but I was very not present as a mother. And I remember as I was climbing the leadership, which I wouldn't even call it leadership, but climbing these ranks and getting to these positions where I was able to do other things. And Deanne was asking us, can you come to this training? You're close enough to drive. Like, can you be here early to help set up? And my daughter being like, where are you going? And I'm like, well, I have to go help other mommies. That's what Deanne told me to tell my daughter, was that it was okay that I was going away because what I was doing was going to help other mommies stay home with their kids. So the sacrifice was all right for me to sacrifice my time with my daughter and things like that. So I look back on that now and I'm like, and I'm thankful she was young and that she understands, and she's so in on this whole like thing that I do, that she's so aware. And it's just part of our life and we talk about it. And I was always always on edge, always stressed, always felt more important than I was. Like, don't you understand who I am and what I'm doing and how you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. I don't think I ever said those things, but it was that feeling of like, don't you understand what I'm doing? It's so much bigger than what we're worried about. And so there was a lot of like takeout and a lot of frozen meals. And I just became the exact opposite of who I wanted to be. And the whole reason I joined this in the first place.
Well, especially when the entire presentation that I've seen from the company, all the marketing was essentially, you can be a mom and put family first, put your marriage and your children first, and then this is just something for you. This is like a side business. Like, this is not meant to take over your whole life. It's meant to enrich your life. As opposed to, like, there are plenty of working moms, and there is nothing wrong with frozen dinners, and kids are resilient, and there are single working parents that have to just do what they need to do to get by and are doing the best they can. If you're going to go and be a lawyer, that you're going to be gone a lot. If you're actually going to be doing special effects makeup, you're going to be gone a lot. And if that's your passion and your dream, and that's amazing, go for it. But you specifically wanted to stop driving to LA from San Diego so you could stay home and be with your child more and be present in their life. And that's the part that's like so heartbreaking when you're like, no, I'm doing this for the right reasons. I'm doing this for the right reasons. And then you can't even, there's not even time to stop and think about, like, wait, why am I doing this?
Right.
What am I really getting out of this? I mean, did you have, like, is there a moment that sticks out where you like saw it and you caught like a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, or that someone was your mirror?
Yeah, my kids. It was summer. It was hot. It was the summer of 2017, and the kids wanted to swim. And I had just gotten this huge order delivered, and the normal sales weren't working. You always had to do something different and be different and set yourself apart. And so I started making outfits. And if you bought the entire outfit, you got like a discount on it. But if no one wanted the outfit after 24 hours, you could break it apart and you could buy it. I didn't want to be like strict about that if someone wanted to buy something. But I spent a lot of time pairing these outfits together, and it was a lot of work because my inventory, nothing is the same size. Everything is mismatched. So I had to spend a lot of time finding outfits that would match in sizes that people could actually buy and go, oh, all of this would fit me. And I'm styling it with hats and shoes and purses and all this stuff that I had bought on clearance at Target and all these places, just literally for flat lays and designing these things. I'm spending all this time, and they're all set up, folded, ready to go for the mannequin to be dressed and the next picture to be taken. And my kids are like, can we go swimming? And I was like, yeah, just as soon as I'm done. And they're just sitting there in their bathing suits, like on the couch, all ready to go with the towels. And they're just watching me like, we're just waiting for you to be done with this ridiculous thing you're doing. And I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And I realized that like, there's no way that I'm going to be done in time to actually take them swimming, to like have a decent amount of swimming before we have to come upstairs and have dinner and all this stuff like at our old house. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go swimming. And I just turned it all off and I was like, it doesn't matter. And I just took them outside and I went swimming. And I think that was one of the first times that there was an actual crack where I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I actually doing? Like, if I want to be this mom who's here to be here for my kids and all of this stuff, like, let's go swimming. And I think that was one of the first cracks. And probably within the next couple weeks is when everything sort of happened and I left.
Were you at this point already getting the infamous moldy wet leggings and the stinky legs? So you already saw cracks within the company, but we're deep enough within it that you could justify, I'm sure, or just start to question things. I mean, were you allowed to question things? Were you allowed to say like, hey, this is taking over. How can I find something that works where I can still like make money, but I'm out of pocket. So, I mean, that's a lot of money out of pocket to be paying for all those additional like accessories for flat lays.
Yeah.
And I mean, was the company involved with that at all? No.
No, it's you. You're a business owner. They're just your wholesaler. That's all they are. They're just your wholesaler. So everything is extra on top of you. And I didn't see any of the red flags the first year because I was wearing rose-colored glasses.
Well, and you were making a shit ton of money. Like you were making money because you had, at that point, how many people did you have under you?
I don't, at the very end, there were 75 women. I don't remember. I would say probably the first year, there was probably like 40 to 50 the first year. And then it just sort of kept going.
So you're getting bonus checks on off of 40 to 50 people every month.
Yeah. And the first one was like $400 plus whatever I did in sales. The biggest bonus check that I ever got was like $6,500. So I'm not one of those people that had these like $100,000 bonus checks. I always say that I was sort of like right in the middle of that cherry flavored primordial ooze in the pyramid. Like I'm right in the middle. I mean, $6,500 is life changing to a lot of people for a month. Oh my God, that would take care of all my bills. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like it's a really life changing number, but it was not the number that I actually got because it costs us money to make that money. There's a lot of things, like there's a saying in MLM where they say never leave any money on the table. You know, and the saying should continue no matter how much it costs you, because that's what it is. And say you've got a $5,000 bonus check coming in, right? I could really use that $5,000 bonus check, but I haven't qualified for it. And I'm going to need to spend, because I'm not going to be able to sell $1,000 in the next 12 hours. So I'm going to need to maybe try to have a sell as much as I can. And then I'm going to either buy it myself or I'm going to falsify the records to make it look like I bought it myself. And then I'll have to take the hit on the taxes, and then I'll just set it and I'll sell it for cash, and then I'll just offset it later. I mean, it's insane.
I mean, what was your husband saying at this point?
So in the very beginning, he was like, I don't know. You do way too much. Like, you don't need anything else. Like, this seems kind of scammy. Like, I don't know. It's really weird. But if you're going to do it and you're not going to let up on it, then you need to do it yourself. And then he wasn't super supportive, but he wasn't unsupportive. And then he tried to be supportive. I remember one time he tried to like help me sort the colors of all the solids. And he was just like, there's like 10 different blues. And I was like, I know, it's obnoxious. And then I remember there were some conversations with LulaRoe home office at some events. And I was like, hey, you know, how do I get my husband more invested? And they were like, well, once the money starts rolling in. And I was like, yeah, no, my money's rolling in. And he's like, eh. And that's when Deanne was like, well, maybe you should just look for a new husband. And I was like, oh, like you should get a LulaRoe husband. I was like, oh, a LulaRoe husband.
Like, do you sell those too? Or do they come with leggings? Is that a different package I missed?
Yeah, the LulaRoe husband is separate.
Oh,
it's
okay.
an add-on.
That's a different level. Yeah.
And I was just like, you know, and then there was obviously it was something they were thinking about. Like, Roberta has an unsupportive husband, probably not Deanne, but my uplines. And he was invited to come with me to leadership conference in October. And that was like the first time that he had come to a LulaRoe event. And it was themed. There was like a 90s party at like a high school, and it was this whole thing. And we got to go like to like the trampoline place and eat pizza with our friends. Like, we were 13, you know, I mean, ridiculous. I was like, we could do this anytime. Like, what is so special about this? But he came back from that a different person. Like, he came back from that and he was like, we're all in with LulaRoe. And I was like, really? And there was this new thing that was coming out, this new piece. And he basically told me, he's like, you need to use every single bit of money that you have in your LulaRoe account to get as many of those as you can. And he's like, and if you can get more, he's like, let me know, you can use my credit card and we'll get more. And I remember thinking like, whoa, yeah, right? But good ending. We ended up selling every single one of those pieces and made money off of it. And there was no like bad on that. But I do remember like that moment and being like, yikes. Like, it was a little weird. And then he went on the cruise with me. And I think we both were like, this is weird on the cruise, because we realized what we could do is if we had name badges, if we could just tuck our name badges like in our shirt and we wore our bathing suits and our cover-ups, nobody knew we were with LulaRoe, because the cruise I went on was half normal people and half cult people.
Oh,
and so we could blend in. And that was one of the moments where I was like, this is kind of weird, right? And we met another couple who was...
What made you think it was weird? Like, what stood out? What were you guys... What was the weird part?
It was like a weird vibe. It was very culty. And this was before I had ever associated with LulaRoe or MLMs with cults. It was very
like
culty.
Everyone looked the same. Everyone dressed the same. Everyone
was always dressed the same and looking the same. But it was more than that. It was like, there was a lot of like false idol worship, and I had never seen it because at convention, it's like a big hullabaloo, but over like 7 days, it's different, right? And you're watching people, you're having breakfast with people, you're watching how people react to other people. Because for me, I didn't care. Like, I was just like happy to have a vacation. And it was really strange to see people like fangirling and being like this was some sort of celebrity, like jumping on couches and like being weird, standing in line to take pictures with like home office people. It was very strange. And a lot of the home office people like didn't have their wives with them and were hanging out with like all of these retailers and had these really big entourages of like other retailers who hadn't brought their husbands and had decided to bring like a teammate instead. So it could be like an even bigger party. And it was just weird. It was just weird. And I did not want to be associated with it. They were loud. They were obnoxious. Even like certain people in LulaRoe that were in positions of power were kind of weird, saying things. I thought it was a vacation, but for some reason there were like meetings scheduled every day. And I only went to one of them because I felt like I needed to show my face to be like, I did go to something. They saw me there because I didn't want any backlash. But it was just really weird. And at that meeting that I went to was where I asked my friend, I said, oh, you look so good. What have you been doing? And she was like, oh, I went to Tijuana and got weight loss surgery. Do you want the information? And I was like, whoa, what? And so even that put
basically
me off.
There was someone within a leader of the company. I'm like so nervous, like whenever it turns into like cult or culty religions or like any sort of, I'm like,
I do this all the
I'm
time.
just going to be ambiguous. Okay.
The sister, allegedly, in my opinion, in my experience, the sister of the owner of LulaRoe, her name is Elena. I do not know if she lives in Tijuana or she just works in Tijuana, but she runs the office of this weight loss center called Obesity Not For the Number Me in Tijuana. I believe the facility is clean. I don't have anything to say about the facility. I have no ill will to anybody who even decides to go that route at all. But essentially what would happen is you would get on this list. You would send Lene $5,000 via PayPal. She would keep $1,000 as her cut, like her finder's fee. I don't know who got any of that money, whether Lene got it all, whether there was a DN kickback or what. And then the rest of the money was forwarded to the doctor, and then you got put on the surgery list. And then essentially what happened is you then flew to California, and then you went in their private jet to Tijuana as a group.
Whose private jet?
LulaRoe's private jet.
Okay, so
and
it
the
was
picture.
Yes,
the picture that's in. Allegedly, in my opinion, my experience from people I've talked to, the picture that's in LulaRich of them all sitting in the jet, Lachey, who's in LulaRich, actually took that photo, and that is them on the way to Tijuana. I don't know if Lachey took it or Lachey gave it. I think Lachey gave. I'm not sure, but that was a pre-surgery flight,
and that just kind of gives a glimpse into the culture.
Yeah.
Like the toxicity of the culture within the company.
Right.
And the level of expectation of uniform.
Absolutely. That was one of the bigger selling things for me because LulaRoe was quote unquote size inclusive, right? It was a extra, extra small all the way up to, I believe, 3X. And I thought, wow, that is really great. That is so size inclusive. Most of the clothes were stretchy and had Lycra type fabric. So it was very forgiving. There's only a few things that were sort of size where it was a zipper or something like that. So it felt very, very open and inclusive and size welcoming.
Yeah. Which was not popular in 2016. It's like still,
which was not the thing,
we're
right?
still slowly getting there now, but not nowhere close to where it needs to be. But especially in 2016, that
and
was
then you
very
find
unique.
out that it's heavily encouraged to get these surgeries. That Deanne prefers us, when I say us, I mean the people that speak on stage, to be able to fit into a medium is what she prefers. Now it's not a one, like if you're not a medium, whatever, but it's the preference of the owner that you're at least a medium or smaller.
Well, it's like the strong suggestion.
Yeah, very strong.
It's the strong suggestion, which, is legally is not a requirement, but it's a strong suggestion. And we all know what that means within a company. Yes.
And it was so, I was like, well, how can you be size inclusive and like talk about being body positive and like have plus size and then encourage us to, it didn't make sense. And it was one of the first moments of cognitive dissonance. It's like A doesn't equal A. Like this doesn't make any sense.
Did you feel supported by anyone? Like who did you talk to? Like once you started, you're like realizing, I'm really just breaking even. I'm not having time with my kids this is the whole reason why I went this route. This is a very toxic workplace that is just not feeling right. Who were you able to talk to within the company? Because you also said everyone you hung around at that point everyone that was your friend was a LulaRoe employee. I mean, was everyone feeling the same way?
Not everyone, but there was a small subset in my team who even though I joked that I was a mega hun, and I'm hun in MLM, which is because they say, hey hun, it's like a slang. I was very real and authentic and open, and people knew they could come to me and say, hey, it's not working out for me. I think I'm going to go. And I wasn't like, how dare you, blocked. I never blocked anybody. I never shamed anyone for leaving. It was always a personal choice, and I always respected it. I'm not going to say that it didn't sting a little and it didn't hurt. And I'm like, oh man, like that bums me out. And I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't worry about my paycheck either, because I did, because that's how MLMs work.
Yeah. But
I knew that the people that were leaving, a lot of them were people I had known before LulaRoe. And they're like, it just doesn't work for me anymore. A lot of it was like, there was this group of 3 women who really helped me. And they're like, we don't like Mark, he's gross. And I was like, I know, I agree. He's really gross.
He's the husband. Yeah. He's Dan's husband, who is also, they're like the lords of the company. I mean, was anyone coming to you saying, hey, Roberta, it's not working for me. I'm not making money. Like, how do I make money?
Yeah. So again, it was just like people would come to me and they'd talk to me because they could trust me, and they'd say, what's going on? And I wasn't experiencing it because I was actually making money at this point. And I'm like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Maybe we could do a sale together. Have you tried, like, when was the last time you did a live sale? When was the last time you tried to host something? And ask like the basic things, like, how many sales have you had this week? Maybe we can do a sale together. Maybe you can sell in my group. Like, I'm really busy this week. You can come sell in my group. I have a different, lots of options to help somebody. And I remember my friend came to me one time and she was like, Roberta, I don't know what to do. I think we're going to lose the house because I've been buying LulaRoe instead of paying my mortgage. And I was like, you need to immediately pay your mortgage. Like, no more LulaRoe for you. And this was a person that I had known and was a good friend of mine. And she listened to me, and they did not lose their house. She did leave LulaRoe and she got some of her money back. But I was so heartbroken that it had to come to that point, that she felt that she was going to disappoint me at any other point, that she had to come to me on like the brink of like, I'm about to lose my house. What should I do? That was like another brick in the pyramid was like shattered. And slowly, it wasn't just these little bricks. It was like load bearing bricks where I was like, whoa, that's a big one. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I had friends that were coming to me and saying things, and like, we don't like Mark. That's why we left. And he gives us these heebie-jeebies. And we had a girls' wine night. And I said, tell me how you feel. And they're like, we are so surprised you're still in. And I really sort of took it to heart. And there were a couple other things that happened. But ultimately what happened was they ripped the buyback program out. I knew I wasn't eligible for buyback because I was a leader. And if you were a leader and you were going to go with the buyback route, you also had to pay back all your bonuses.
So for anyone listening that doesn't know what a buyback is, I feel like this is another really important, like little nugget of information that should be a giant red flag, right. Especially if it's ripped away. Can you explain just in like simple terms, like what the buyback program was, what it was originally, and then how it changed?
Yeah. So at the beginning of 2017, when people were leaving, there was a start of a mass exodus. And the way that LulaRoe, I feel, in my opinion, tried to end that exodus was they came out with something called the 100% buyback. And it was like, hey, look, if you want to leave, we will give you your money back 100%. It is completely guaranteed. So if you're on the fence and you want to join. Because if it doesn't work out for you, you can get your money back. And that's literally what it was. Like, we 100%, no questions asked. And it was used as a recruitment tool. And there were a lot of people at that time that were on the fence that used their tax returns and joined LulaRoe because it was right at that same time. And people are like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And a ton of people joined LulaRoe. But the other thing it did was all of the people that were on the fence inside also left. They're like, oh, I can get 100% of my money back? Peace. And they left. And from, I don't know, it was like spring until the end of summer-ish, this 100% buyback program was alive and kicking. And people were leaving in droves. There was a really, really arduous process that you had to go through to get it. It's obnoxious. But those that got the money were like, whoo, I'm free. Mm-hmm. LulaRoe told us so many times, it's not going anywhere. The buyback program is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. They had all of the leaders express, it's not going anywhere. It's always going to be here. That's how much we love you. That's how much we believe in this business. And so it was like, yeah, of course, no problem. There was a secret meeting the week before the buyback program was pulled. That was with all the top leaders. I was not privy to it. I was told there was a recording. I've never heard it. I'm very curious. But when all the leaders came back, they were like, don't worry, the buyback program's not going anywhere, and reiterated it. And then the day that I ended up quitting was the same day that Mark came on and said, look, we've given over $50 million in refunds in the last few months, and we can't do it anymore. And the buyback program effectively now is ended. And anybody who has not received their shipping labels through this ridiculously arduous process, if you have not already received the shipping labels from us, but you've counted and you've done it and you've done everything else, you're no longer you're not grandfathered in. Anybody that does not have a shipping label, you're SOL. And that included a lot of people I knew who really needed that money for not only to pay their bills, but because Christmas was coming and the holidays were coming, and they were like, I really need this money. And I was pissed, and I left that day. And in fact, I left probably a couple hours before it happened, because I could tell something was going to go. And I was like, I'm not into this. I'm not going to be here anymore. I had a conversation with my upline, and I told her I was leaving. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. For 45 minutes, she berated me on the phone and told me that I needed to stay, that Christmas was coming, the Disney villains were coming, the Nightmare Before Christmas, the holiday, everything. I was going to miss out on all of it, that there were really big money makers.
All the fun functions that they were going to put on.
Yeah.
Just like, this isn't fucking summer camp. This is work. This is business. This is making an income for your family so you can send your kids to summer camp.
Right. And I knew sitting there having this argument about 40 minutes in that nothing was going to change on either end. And so I just had to lie. And I was like, you know what? I will stay. You've changed my mind. I hung up the phone and I went home and I wrote up something that was like, I'm leaving. And I posted it. And I remember I had removed her from my group, and I had removed a couple people that I knew were obvious spies from my group. But I guess I missed a couple, because within 10, 15 minutes, there was this very angry text from her. How could you do this to me? We agreed you would stay, all of this stuff. And I'm just like, you understand this? This is not about you. Like, this is my life.
But then also, do you wonder how much she was making in her bonus?
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean?
I know how much she was making, because I stayed on LulaRoe because I'm petty like that. I stayed on LulaRoe and I did nothing. And I impacted her check until she reached out to me in December and was like, what are you planning on doing? And I said, I want out. I've tried to leave. I've emailed. I've done all the things. No one will let me leave. I want out. I said, so help me get out, and I will sign over the team. And so we had to do like a notarized letter or something with me and a couple different uplines and the girl that was going to assume my team as like the owner. And then I think, what did she give me? She gave me like $500 or something, like nothing to transfer it all over for my pain and suffering, maybe. I don't know. And I said, as long as you guys do all of the work and all I have to do is sign it and accept that check, then I will. But this is what I'm doing. And I will just be nothing until whatever happens. And I've never seen anybody in LulaRoe get something done so fast. That was like, the money was transferred and everything was done within like a day or two. And at that moment I was like, well, now I'm definitely done with LulaRoe. And now I can talk to the media, because I have signed that I am no longer associated with them.
At that point, did you feel relief? Did you feel sad did you feel sad that you were kind of maybe saying goodbye to some friends? Did you all of a sudden look in the mirror and go, now who am I? Like, I was on this big search for my identity and got so wrapped up in something that is not me. What did the quiet after that kind of chaos look like for you?
So, I, at the time, had undiagnosed ADHD. So what I did is I hyper-focused on figuring out what the fuck just happened to me. And the first thing I watched was Aftermath. What was that? I think the show was Aftermath. Yeah. Aftermath with Mike Rinder and Leah Remini, the Scientology show. And I watched it, and I was such a huge fan of them for so long. And I broke down into tears, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in a cult. Like, there was an example I was like, that happened to me in LulaRoe. Not as severe, but that did happen to me too. Or that happened to so-and-so. And I was like, I was crying. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in a cult. And so I went down that rabbit hole. I went down the MLM rabbit hole. I was like, is this a LulaRoe thing? Is this like, what is this? How do I figure this out? And I went on, I found anti-MLM Reddit and I met some people there and they were from different MLMs and they were confirming, oh, that happened to me in this MLM. That happened to me in Unique. That happened to me in Young Living. And I was like, oh my God, it's a thing. Like, this is a thing. And there were already people who were speaking out and saying like, MLMs are horrible. Most of them were anonymous or under like, you know, anonymous names or cutesy like screen names or something. And I had seen a lot of those people get taken down because people just really wanted to know who they were. Like, who is this behind this account? And I didn't want to be I didn't want to be doxxed and I didn't want to be attacked. And so I just was like, I'm going to speak my truth and I'm going to use my name because I don't want to hide and I don't want to deal with people trying to figure out who I am. And I started digging into like the cult connections and I found Dr. Stephen Hassan and his bite model and his research. And then I found The Dream with Jane Marie, which is a podcast about like the seedy underbelly of MLM. I actually discovered that while I was filming the smaller documentary that I did, the Vice documentary. I found that, which led me to Robert Fitzpatrick, who is the pyramid scheme guy. And all of these people they just sort of started connecting this like red yarn web on my wall in my brain where I was like, oh my God, it's connected. And I started reaching out to these people and saying, I don't know what's going on, but like, maybe you can help me. And more people started coming forward and I would reach out and the media came and Bloomberg News and Vice News. And we were sources for Business Insider and we were sources for BuzzFeed. And all of this stuff started coming out and people just wanted to talk to us. And I was like, reluctantly, I was like, well, I've done the research. I've been through the ringer. I feel like I can talk to people from a place of compassion and empathy because I am that, quote, stupid person that joined. And there was this very polarizing community when I got in there where it was like half of the people thought you were stupid because you joined an MLM and the other half of people thought you were stupid because you left an MLM. And I was like, I know that I'm not stupid. And I know that this was bigger than just me selling leggings. And so I sort of had to like carve a third path in this, which was going, hey, I'm a victim of this. Like I'm a survivor now, but we're victims. We're victims of a systemic problem that is coerced and colluded by the government and everyone around. And everyone just sort of like pretends it's not a thing. And it's a very, very real thing. And I couldn't stay quiet any longer. And reluctantly, I just sort of became that person and sort of carved a new identity for myself as being the person that was like, oh, no, LulaRoe, you're a big fat liar and I'm going to tell the world.
Do you go to therapy? Are you a therapy person?
I am a therapy person and I was doing a little bit of therapy for a while. I'm no longer in therapy now. I think I might want to go back again because I've hit another wall of like, I have more work to do. Yeah. And I did see a psychiatrist when I got my diagnosis for ADHD. So there was that too. I'm also a very much a workbook person. I know that there's no one that I'm in competition with except for who I was yesterday. And so I'm always just trying to be better and learn and take constructive criticism and move forward because I think helping people is more important than not helping people, I guess.
Yeah, but even the ability to take that, to have it within yourself, to see like the world with all the lights turned on, to see your experience for what it was and block out that noise. Because that is, I mean, anytime where people get involved in a cult or, you know, a cult that's really masked as a religion or a cult that's masked as a, MLM pyramid scheme, you know, it's so, I think society is so quick to jump to, how could you just not see it?
Right.
You know, like, how could you be so, like, and the word that you used was stupid, which I think a lot of people use that word, which is so ridiculous. Because actually, I'm sure you've had the experience not only on your podcast, but in talking with other people and sharing your story. Like, who are the other people that you've seen be totally taken advantage of by this system? And you have to be very smart to be able to, you know, start a business, sell things, you know, and you're part of this culture that is growing very, very fast. I mean, what LulaRoe did and how quickly they were able to grow was a little bit of lightning in a bottle, but also like some just smart fucking business, smart, like manipulative models of like running this business. Is that the right word? MLM.
I mean, I would say scam.
Yes, that's a much better.
You can say business if you'd like. It is a business to someone, right? Someone
it's a business
up the chain,
to someone.
It is a business.
Yes, there we go. That's what it is. But who else have you met that I think, that you've really related to that has quieted your brain into thinking like, oh yeah, this happens. This happens all the time, every day.
There's so many brilliant people that I've gotten to meet who I've talked to and it's wonderful. And I mean, even Mike Rinder and Leah Remini became friends and I got to talk to them about that. Anybody can get sucked into a cult, whether it's an MLM or, like you said, a religious organization, a high demand relationship with a narcissistic partner. Like anything can be a cult, a cult of 1 million or a cult of 1. It's about control and power. And all you have to be to succumb to control and power is vulnerability. Like that's all you need to be is vulnerable. And so when people tell me like, oh, they're dumb or they're uneducated, I've talked to people who have doctorates who are like, I got sucked in.
Yeah.
I in post grad deciding whether or not they wanted to take on another $50,000 loan for a graduate degree or whether they just wanted to try something else and they get funneled into an MLM doing something legitimate. And so there are so many stories of people who are just like, this is a thing. It's everywhere. Why are we not talking about it? Like it is this silent predator that's not really that silent because they're in your inbox all the time, but it is like a silent predator because we see this predator as, the PTA mom or whatever, whoever it is, just wanting to sell us vitamins. And we're like, oh, we don't want any vitamins today. It's not that big of a deal. But like, we don't ever see like how deep and controlling and bad these can be. And not everybody that joins an MLM has these experiences. These are the one-offs, these wild stories. But the other thing is they happen so often that I have a podcast with like over 130 episodes of people telling these stories. And yeah, sure, they're the one-off, but there's a lot of them. And I feel like if there's that problem and they're educated people, they're moms, they're dads, they're doctors, they're scientists, they're teachers.
But I think you hit the nail right on the head with the vulnerability button. Because even, I just on my social media over the weekend, I was saying, who here has been affected by MLMs, message me. And the through line in so many stories was, yes, of course, there's, the financial added bonus, someone just trying to bring in extra income, like part-time. But really, it was usually people who had either been in some form of like depression, who had lost someone in their lives, lost a job, was having an identity crisis. It was usually just, they were in such a vulnerable state. And a lot of new moms, like women with young children. And it's just, when that's the consistent, person that is being targeted, like you have to wonder, like the root, like if the root intention of the company that is really going after working with people and
any marginalized community. If you're vulnerable, you're there. You're it. Herbalife in LA in the 2000s, I believe, like decimated the Latin population because Antonio Villaraigosa was like, the mayor was like, it's a great business opportunity. And so many Latin families bought into it and were bankrupt and destroyed. And it's horrible because Antonio Villaraigosa is a Latino himself, right? And he's using affinity fraud to further a pyramid scheme. And there's a whole movie, Betting on Zero, and a lawsuit and all kinds of stuff about it. It's wild. And it's just so commonplace. I ask people all the time, I'm like, do you know what MLMs are? People are like, oh yeah, like Mary Kay. Oh, like Avon, like Amway? Oh yeah, I know what those are. Oh, my mom sold that, or my dad got stuck in one of those. Everybody has a story. And I think the reason that the MLM stories are so intriguing in the true crime realm, because I mean, they're a true crime, they're a con, right? It's that 1 degree of separation instead of like the 4 or 5 degree of separation with like a murder or like a big case where like, oh, I'm so fascinated, but I'm not connected to that case at all. But I talk about Mary Kay and everyone's like, oh my God, my mom sold that when I was a kid. Or I talk about Amway and people are like, oh, I almost joined Amway. You know, like there is this really personal connection and it's always hiding in plain sight. And I'm just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of unsold Mary Kay at the house. Yeah.
And to me, it people now will send me things. And I have like an MLM graveyard museum collection of like ridiculous things that my followers will send me. They're like, oh, I got this crazy button. You can have it. I don't want it. And I just have this weird collection because now it's become this like kitschy joke to me.
What felt really good? I mean, I know when you did leave, I know from, reading interviews and of yours that your goal initially was to kind of help and assist. You said you had around 70 something people under you at the end. And your goal was to basically help, 70 people who were trying to get out. And it just continued to snowball from there. I mean, while you're trying to also process your own experience and also in a way like hear like that you were a victim, which is a hard thing to hear when you don't realize that you've been the victim the whole time and you have to realize like that you were taken advantage of. That is a very hard, jagged, terrible pill to swallow. What was going from that, state of mind to I want to help other people and I can use this and turn it into something good for others and maybe even myself?
I think initially there was like this shock where I was like, oh my God, it was like, I've been scammed this whole time. Like I bought into every single, like I did it all. There was that first initial like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I bought into? What have I been a part of? And then there was the secondary, oh my God, I was complicit. Who else did I bring into this? Who else did I affect? Who else did I hurt? And so thinking about that, I'm very like, I try to stay on the good side of karma all the time. And I was like, oh, I am not on the good side of karma right now because I could see that I had hurt so many people. And so I made this promise to myself. I said, if you help at least, it was 75. If you help at least 75 women out, then you are 0-0. You are clean. Just and I thought, okay, at least that will clean my slate. I can just help 75 women out. I don't know how many people I've helped out of LulaRoe, but I know that the people I've helped out of MLM is in the thousands upon thousands upon thousands. I don't count anymore because it was just so much. But we've got almost 3 million downloads on my podcast. So we're helping people. We're reaching an audience. I get emails from people that are saying things like, I found your podcast because I wanted to learn how not to be by listening to your examples and being the opposite of what these people were to these victims and these stories. And then you talked about my MLM and you didn't lie. There was no lies. And everything you said, I was like, ugh, and I couldn't deny it. Because when you didn't talk about my MLM, I could deny it. But when you did talk about my MLM, I had to look at some really hard truths. And sometimes the email ends with, and I left. And sometimes the email ends with, but I'm really, really high up and all of my eggs are in this basket. Oh. So my husband is looking for work and we are working our way out. I'm no longer actively recruiting. I'm just maintaining the team I have and I'm slowly getting out. I'm not buying things I don't need. I'm listening to your show. I'm being very aware. I'm doing a profit and loss. I'm being very aware of everything and we are slowly working our way out. And I think a lot of people don't understand that because people all say things about like how hard it is to leave and people are like, it's not hard, you just hit cancel. And then, I'll make a TikTok or something. I'm like, oh, is it? Can everybody tell me how hard it was to leave their MLM? And I'll have hundreds and hundreds of comments of people going, I tried to hit cancel. They're still charging my credit card. I had to change my credit card to get away from them. I had to change my info to get away from them. So, and then I go, is it easy though? Because we have hundreds of comments of people telling us how hard it was. And just one comment of somebody telling me how stupid I am for saying that it was not easy. And, there's a lot of rhetoric that is built into these businesses to defend them as legitimate. Just like Scientology or just like any other cult, there is built-in rhetoric and grooming. They teach you what happened. Like they literally teach you what to say to someone like me who comments on something or something that you see, right? They know there's going to be haters. Haters will come. And they are jealous of your success. They are jealous of who you are and what you do. And they're really jealous. And when they come, you just need to block them because they are going to try to this and that. And okay, I'll just block. I don't need that negativity in my life.
It's like gaslighting with toxic positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
In the weirdest way.
With a wide brimmed hat.
With a yes. And a lot of hairspray.
Yeah, absolutely.
God.
And I just think like the more that we can really show these glaringly obvious red flags, the ones that are so red you can even see them through rose-colored glasses. As long as we continue to talk about that and show these examples, for me, I it's really, really important. I would love to talk to somebody who's in an MLM and who's having a great time. I haven't found anybody, one, that their MLM will let me talk to them. And then one time I did talk to somebody who was in an MLM, and while she was on my show, she got fired. So.
That's efficient.
I have to give the caveat of like, if you're still in an MLM and you talk to me, you might be terminated.
You might. That's the easiest way. If you can't hit the cancel button, just go on your podcast.
Right.
And then that's the easiest way out of an MLM.
Right. I was like, if she had actually been on another person's show like the day before. And so it was most likely because of that, unfortunately. But it was just like, oh, wow. And I've seen it happen so many times that I kind of knew it was coming. But at the same time, being there to be supportive when that happens, because it's hard when that happens. Because, the sentences before that termination letter were how much she had loved the company and how she was really trying to find a way to make it profitable without it being scammy or feeling gross. And then that email sort of just consolidates everything and confirms everything that I've been saying and the entire community has been saying about these businesses. And
it's also popping the bubble a little bit, It's like what they were selling sounded fantastic. Like, I want to go hang out with AC Slater. I want to go see, they had Kelly Clarkson perform one year, Katy Perry, which I also thought was so weird because also WeWork had this thing with Katy Perry. And then Katy Perry was performing Roar at the LulaRoe. I was like, what a year for just pyramid schemes and the song Roar. What an interesting pop culture.
And I want to talk specifically to the managers of celebrities who are saying yes to these MLM conventions and these scammy things. Stop saying yes.
That's where you just go that's money. That the amount of money that they must have paid that wasn't going back to the people.
It was $1 million. I think Katy Perry got $1 million for that.
I wouldn't be surprised because those, the fact though that's what's so sad is there's so many people within these, MLMs, these, schemes where they're not making any money. And then there's all these events like this that are shiny and distracting. Hey, but you get to go on a cruise and you get to go to this party and maybe you'll get a watch or a weird triangle shaped necklace. And that means you've graduated. It's so bizarre to me. But I get it because it is it's fun and you get to escape real life for a little bit. And that's what they're kind of selling is this false business model that doesn't really work long term. It can maybe work for a little bit, but not long term. And you're lucky if it works at all. They're selling community, but it's also a very strict community with one way of thinking, and you're not allowed to question anything. And also selling that that you can have work, life, love, personal balance, hashtag girl boss, that, hashtag live, laugh, love. The reality that we all need to accept at this point is there is no such thing as perfect work-life balance. You're going to have days where you're a great parent. You're going to have days where you're really good at your job. You're going to have days where you're maybe a stay-at-home parent wishing you'd be working, and days where you're working wishing you could be a stay-at-home parent. And that's just when everything is going good in life, without life curveballs of, a pandemic or a health crisis or anything like that.
Right.
So, oh man, we started this conversation with the intention of wanting to have this, job. It was that you could be home with your children more. Now, it's been a long route to get here, which I'm sure you didn't really see this is the long route. How do you feel now about, how you're able to not only run a business for yourself and also be present in your children's lives? Like now that, you're really strong within the foundation of who you are, how does that look today?
My life today looks really different than it did in 2015 when LulaRoe came knocking. My husband and I got a divorce in 2020. Not LulaRoe related at all. We just grew and we're just different people. He's great. He's got his own thing going on and he's living a happy life as well. And, I decided to, I'm again, hairstylist. COVID shut me down. So I started my podcast during the pandemic because I was shut down. Never expected it to be anything other than a passion project of like telling some stories. And people really liked it. And then LulaRich came out, which I did have a little bit of knowledge that was coming out. So then my podcast just sort of took off from there. And there were a lot of people going, yes, this is I've been saying this is exactly awesome. Perfect. 100%. And the podcast over the last year, it has really been a labor of love. And I try to like stay out of hustle culture and just sort of stay in entrepreneur culture. But for the last year, I've been really nurturing the podcast and it has become my full-time job. And I'm able to work at home and do what I love and be passionate about it and have conversations with people like you on amazing shows like yours. And I love podcasting. I'm sure you probably love it too. It is just such a really incredible art form for a creative. And it is a life I never imagined, but also at the same time, like I think back and I go, yeah, no, like totally. Like had Roberta known what podcasting was as a child, I probably would have been like, I'm going to do that. I love it. I absolutely love it. And here I am and I run this now and it's my own thing. And I get to be the person that's like, you know what, I'm going to take some time or I'm going to work later tonight because I'm going to spend some time with my daughter. And you know what? We still get takeout because takeout is delicious. And we still do frozen meals because they're easy and no judgment there. And sometimes we cook, sometimes we don't. It's okay. And we just have a really happy life. We just got a dog. She's 9 months old. She's an Afghan. She is a handful and a half, but it's a lovely, wonderful experience. And Abby and I are living a really great, authentic life. We have a really wonderful relationship where we talk about mental health and we talk about anything that's bothering her. And are there times that I'm really busy and working and I look at her and I go, hey kid, you're going to have to like take care of yourself today. She's like, that's fine, Mom. I have a bunch of stuff I needed to do. And it's normal. And I feel like I live a very normal life, even though there is still stress and anxiety about things. But it's
yours.
It's mine, right?
Yes.
It's mine. And I do remember one time, and I've never told this story before, but we might as well. When I was a kid, my sister and I had these headphones. My dad was like really into like radios and all kinds of stuff. So we always had like radios and headphones and walkie-talkie sets and stuff. And he would always buy us these sets. And sometimes the frequencies, like you could hear the walkie-talkie on the other walkie-talkies, but you couldn't talk back, but you could hear it. So my sister and I sort of like reverse engineered a radio studio. And I was the DJ. And I would have the master walkie-talkie that could talk and my sister would have the radio version. And I would play music. And I would be a DJ. And then she had another one that she could call in and she would request songs. And that she's just in the other room. And then so I'd find it, I'd play it, and I'd play the song. And then I would do like DJ stuff and I would talk about things. And I mean, it's really weird for me to like tell this story because I was probably like 10 or 11 and my sister was probably like 8. But we played radio all the time and it was fun. It was just really fun. She's like, do you want to play radio? It's like, sure. And I think I had the headset with like the mic and it was just so thinking about that and like where I am now, like it is very full circle. I just didn't know I would be talking.
You did know what you wanted to be when you grew up. You just didn't know what it was called yet.
Right. Yeah.
And you didn't know how many people you'd be helping by the time you got here.
And I didn't know I'd be talking about pyramid schemes and cults and frauds and scams and true crime and all kinds of stuff too. And it's just like, it's so fun.
Well, I like to end each conversation with just like a little palate cleanser. I've got 5 quick questions for you. Nothing too heavy. Just whatever kind of, like free word association.
I love it.
But we're gonna start with something that you like.
Something I like. Food. I love food.
Love it. Same. Something that you know.
I know a lot about multi-level marketing and cults.
Hey, that is important information to
I know a
know
lot
these
about
days.
cults. We'll go with that.
Very important knowledge bank these days. Something that you hate.
Ignorance. Willful ignorance.
Willful ignorance.
We'll start with
I like that.
willful
There we
ignorance.
go. I like that in completion. Okay, something that you love. And we all love our kids and our family, but just something that you love that is separate from that.
Oh, man. I love when I'm on like my own personal dopamine high, when there's nothing else, where it's just like, I remember the other day that I got to work, because I sometimes still work in the salon, and I pulled up and I was like 10 minutes early, and I was listening to, I had a hot coffee. I think I had like a little muffin. I was super jazzing, like into it, just totally vibing. And the radio, Katrina and the Waves Walking on Sunshine came on, and I was just like, boom. And I turned it up. And I sat in my car and I'm drinking my coffee and I'm dancing. And I'm like, I don't even care who walks by, because I'm on a dopamine high now that is so incredible. And it was just a really wonderful day to start the day. So I'm going to say, when like everything sort of works and I get this just natural dopamine high, that's just like, you got this. That's what I love.
That's great. That I also a dopamine high. I like that. I'm going to definitely hold on to that. And then something, a quirky little fact about you.
I can tap dance really well. I was a tap dancer for a long time, and I actually was a dance teacher for not only children but adults as well. So yeah, I can.
Do
tap
you have
dance.
like a board in your house?
I don't, but and my tap shoes are around here somewhere. But I tap, and I think it's funny. I always say, my mom put me in tap dancing because I tapped my feet a lot. And I don't think she realized that was my ADHD stimming. And so it didn't cure my stimming. It just made it more rhythmic.
That's fantastic. Well, Roberta, thank you so much for joining me today, for joining us. And just, I really appreciate it. Truly. It's so nice to meet you. I just rewatching it over the weekend. It still just blows my mind that not only how just sad it is when people are taken advantage of by these, organizations of sorts, these companies, these people, but also just how it still happens all the time today. There's new ones popping up all over the place. So truly, I think it could not be a better time, especially with the internet and people just like joining these things, especially in this like post 2020 world where it is very difficult, for a lot of people, and just looking for that kind of that like quick fix to like this quick fix to life. And joy and having it all. I think it's really important for people to not only hear your story, but the stories that you're sharing on your podcast. So thank you
so much.
Yeah, of
course.
You.
It was incredible to meet you too, Candice, and to be on the show. And yeah, absolutely. I love Mia Superbloom. So I was so beyond to be here.
A Superbloom podcast is hosted by me, Candice King, produced by Melissa D. Montz and Diamond Imprint Productions, edited by Diane Kang, post-production sound by Coco Lawrence, and advertising partnership with Acast.